and you're watching The Kitty Boss or listening to it, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. Today, we have another special guest and a special episode, and I'm really excited to introduce her to you very soon. But first, the co-host, who, with the most, is here with us once again, and we really appreciate having the expertise, the knowledge of Dr. Rachel Geller, one of the world's foremost cat behaviorists and cat chaplains, and the founder of All Cats All the Time, the president of this nonprofit organization. So if you are on low income, don't let that be an excuse or a barrier to having a cat, because All Cats All the Time can help with that. Dr. Rachel, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming again and co-hosting with me.
I always look forward to our catch-ups, so ready to go.
As do I, and it is quite hot today where I am, and I'm assuming over there on the East Coast it's quite hot too. So let's introduce our guest, Deborah Blaine. Deborah is an author, and that is the reason she's here today. But before we reveal what she's written and why, Deborah, I just want to welcome you to the show and say thank you for being here and sweating with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, it's a great pleasure. So let's dive into it, shall we? You have written a book. Yep. So can you tell us, first of all, I think everybody wants to know what the title of the book is and where they can get a copy of it.
So the title of the book is Whiskers in the Wild, Saving and Socializing Community Cats. And you can get it on Amazon. In the United States, you can get it on Barnes & Noble as well.
Great.
It's also
That's
on
awesome.
Kobo. It's on Kobo.
Oh.
And I don't think I put it up on Apple, but I did put it on Kobo.
Okay, well, that's awesome. As a piece of trivia, when I was 18 years old, I worked at Barnes & Noble briefly in Encino, California. I had a job, and I worked there as a bookseller in Encino, California, and that was quite fun, actually. I don't know what it's like today, but it was really fun. But anyway, so Whiskers in the Wild. Now, let me tell you why I was interested in the book. Oh, yes, you have a... That's cute. And you know what I love about this cover? It's a pure coincidence, but those two cats right there, that looks like Emily, and that looks like Charlotte. So they look like my cats. There's a glare, but their portraits are behind me right there. Anyway, so the reason I was intrigued in the book and all of that is that my dad does a little bit, not to the extent that you do, but a little bit of taking care of the community cats where he lives. He is separated from my mother. They're not together anymore. She has a cat that she has in her flat in Paris, France, and he doesn't, although he's been talking about getting one, but I believe he's going to be too stubborn to actually go and get his own. But he takes care of the community cats, which I think is lovely and is a wonderful thing, because all of us in my peculiar family grew up with cats. I mean, my dad, went to medical school. He was a doctor, and he told me the story that his cat, when he was studying, used to turn the pages for him when he was studying. He'd just have to read, and he'd look up real quick, and the cat would flip the page for him. That's pretty cool.
When I was in medical school, my cat at the time used to drape herself around my neck, and she would reach down every once in a while and turn the page. And I would say, I'm not done with that yet. And I'd turn it back, and she'd flip it again. So I think that there's something about medical textbooks and cats that we should look into.
But possibly, yeah. I mean, like you and my dad have this thing in common. That's really cool. So see, this was fate. This was this was meant to be. Not only does your book cover have like cats that resemble my cats, but you have a backstory that's a little bit like my dad's backstory. I think that's very cool. But anyway, so tell us a little bit next about why you've written this book.
Why I wrote the book. So it started with, well, first of all, I'm an author and I write books. I've published 10 books so far. And I had an experience with this little cat who I've named Midnight, who basically almost literally knocked on my door one day. It was right before the first blizzard of the year, 4.5 years ago. And I was walking out and she was just sitting there and she just meowed. And I just like looked at her like, oh, hi. And I had to go down the street for a minute. I came back. She was still there. I asked her if she wanted food. She meowed again. I got her some food. I started feeding her. And I have another cat who's a senior cat who's now almost 16. And she was not happy with this. And so Midnight stayed on the porch in a little house, and I was feeding her. But I was at the time I was looking for information about cats outdoors. I didn't have any experience with outdoor cats. She had a chewed off ear, which at the time I didn't understand meant that she'd been through trap, neuter, return. I thought she must have been in a fight because her ear was chewed off. And I didn't really know like how to get her in the house, how to introduce her to my other cat. She obviously used to be someone's house cat. She had people skills. She meowed at me. And I did a lot of research about cat behavior. And one of the crucial things with this was that feral cats don't meow to us. They have lots of vocalizations, but they don't speak to us with meow. Only our house cats do that. They learn to do that to communicate with us. But this cat was meowing at me, and she eventually would let me, she would eat treats out of my hands. She would purr. She would rub against me, but she was very skittish. And I also first wanted to know, does this cat belong to someone? So I went to Facebook, of course, where else do you go? And I posted about this cat, and I got this barrage of well-intended, completely confusing and often misinformed um, information. Oh, so cute. um, and that was frustrating, but it was also very telling. It was like the community of cat lovers out there are often they don't understand. Many of them are clueless. They want to help, but they don't know how. And so eventually I did, when it got really hot, speaking of hot, 4 summers ago, and Midnight was really struggling, and she was lethargic. And I have a friend who's been trapping for a rescue for 7 years. She's retired, but she's a volunteer and she does that. And she helped me get Midnight into a carrier. I mean, the whole story is kind of pretty hysterical the way I tried to do it and failed. And I got her to the vet, and then I brought her indoors. And I was still trying to figure out the whole scenario. And I kept thinking I wanted to write a book, but the interaction between the two cats in my house has been in some ways comical, but mostly a little disappointing. I wanted them to be friends, and they're not friends. And I did a lot of research. Before I met Dr. Rachel, I consulted, because I didn't know you. I consulted with another animal behaviorist who was not very helpful, with an emotion code therapist. I tried an animal communicator. I was really desperate to get these two cats to, thankfully there's never been physical contact, but my senior cat is the instigator, the hisses, the growls, and I used to say to her, you don't want to mess with this cat because she's been living on the streets for years and she's just solid muscle. You've been a couch potato all your life. Like, if there was ever to be an altercation, it wouldn't come out well. But Midnight is a very submissive cat, which is the reason I took her in. And so I think I ultimately ended up with box flower essences that I put on Sammy Cat's ears to stop the aggression and the anxiety or whatever. And then I did meet Dr. Rachel, and she was so helpful. Would have been, if my cats were different people, and I use that word on purpose, would have been even more helpful. Sammy Cat is not food motivated at all.
Oh.
And the cat that I used to have that she learned from, he taught her to stay away from his food and everybody else's food. You can have your kibble, that's it. And Midnight is not play oriented. Midnight, I would try to play with her, and she would look at me like, "Are you kidding me? I know what a bird looks like. That is not a bird. Go away." I mean, I could almost see her like looking at me like, "What are you doing? What is that?" But we did strike up. There were some things that were super helpful about the rubbing the scent on the sock and transferring the socks between rooms, and but anyway, then so what I was thinking that I wanted to write a book about cats because I write books and I write primarily fiction, but there's usually a cat in my fiction books. And I have one book where the cat is actually the main supporting character, and the fate of the colonists lies with the cat.
Oh,
And the cat is actually
that
very
does sound
crucial.
cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was helping out. I don't remember, this was maybe last December or something. I don't know how I got onto the messaging of John DeBacker, who's a local rescue icon on Long Island. And he's like, he's just really well known. He goes into places that I wouldn't want my son to go into, but he rescues cats like crazy. And so I got this message, can anybody transport a cat from Syosset to Babylon? And I was like, you know what? I got writer's block right now. It's not far. I'm kind of in between those two places. So I went and I did it. And I met him and I said, have you ever thought about writing a book? Because that's one of the things I do. I'm a coach and I coach writers. I help them write their books and I help them self-publish their books. And he said, yeah, he was really interested, but he really didn't have enough material to make it a whole book. And so we decided that I was going to write the book and I'd put in a chapter for him. And that's how it came about that I was going to write the book. And then I got in touch with Dr. Rachel and asked if she would write the foreword. And I talked to my friend who's the trapper. I love having your cats. And
that's Charlotte.
Yeah, so that's how the book came about.
That sounds really interesting. You were talking about vocalizing, and they both vocalized. Emily came in and wanted my attention, so I grabbed her to show her. And then Charlotte did the same thing, actually from the other side. She came this way, Emily came that way, and vocalized, meowed at me. And so I was like, well, okay, well, I'm going to scoop you up and introduce you to Deborah. So
they must have been listening and wanted to prove my point.
Probably, yeah. She's still here there, but I wanted to pick up on something. Dr. Rachel, you said that you, or Deborah said that she consulted with you after all these other things. So what is it that you shared with her?
I think, was I helping you with an introduction? I can't even remember at this point, but it was an introduction, right?
It was. Well, I told you that they'd been living together for like 3 years, 2.5 years.
I do a lot of work with people around both introducing cats and reintroducing cats. So if you do a proper introduction from the first place, that's best case scenario. Many people don't. And as Deborah mentioned, there can be a lot of misinformation on the internet and from well-meaning friends and colleagues. But it's really important to go through a structured introduction process step by step. Never put cats together to expect them to work out their differences on their own. It never works that way when it comes to cats. So they really need a structured introduction. But then I get people who stuck the cats together too soon or did a little bit of one thing, but not the other steps that are necessary. So then I might do a reintroduction where we'll walk it all the way back, create new positive associations, and build a foundation almost as if the cats really have never met each other before. So I have a very, very structured process. I keep track the best I can of people who, get back to me. Thank you so much. This worked, or, following email chains and keeping files. And with my reintroduction, I have a 94% success rate. So it can be done. It is a process. It's not always for the faint of heart because it can take a little bit. And people find it very distressing, when cats are yowling and unhappy. But I always say to people, keep your eyes on the prize. It's worth the temporary discomfort to have your cats tolerate each other. Now, note, I'm using the word tolerate. We may not ever get them to gleefully embrace each other, but we can absolutely get to tolerance where the cats aren't always fighting. They'll coexist. They may not be best friends. They may not cuddle, but they can live together in the same home peacefully, which many people are completely fine with that. If they can get their cats to the point where they're okay with each other sharing a space, that's often the goal.
That's really, that's really important. And I think it stems from, because we did an episode, I think it was in January, on feline non-recognition aggression.
That can be
So that
one
stems
factor.
from,
Yeah.
it stems from that. So whether it's because they don't recognize the cat, well, because they've never met the cat before, or whether they don't recognize the cat because it has been to the vets and doesn't smell like it used to do, that's where this stuff comes from. Interestingly enough, I've never had any of this issue with cats and humans. So my cat's never had this kind of non-recognition issue with like a person that visits the house for the first time that they're meeting. They're always quite friendly to human visitors. It's only happened like to themselves when they go to the vet and then they come home and they're like, who are you? You know?
Yeah, it's the same. We're the same way. Humans are the same way. Some of us are very shy and reticent around strangers or people we don't know. And other people can stroll right up to somebody and strike up a conversation. And within 15 minutes, it's like they're best friends. So cats are the same way. They all have different personalities. They'll have a stronger or weaker sense of a survival instinct. Some cats will run away because they don't know if that person is friendly or if that person is a predator. And they can, some cats have that very strong survival instinct. I don't recognize that scent at all. I'm going to go hide until the danger passes. But, we people the same way. I won't even like go in the car without a seatbelt, even if I'm just going around the block. And yet there are people who go bungee jumping. So we're all, as us too, like we're on very different ends of the spectrum. My husband can drop something on the floor. Forget that 5-second rule. If he drops some food on the floor, he's like, oh, more condiments. That's how he looks at dirt and dust, and he'll eat it. But if I drop something on the floor, I toss it. So to me, that's like a way you could get sick or become ill. So that's my survival instinct. His clearly isn't as strong because he doesn't find that bothersome. So
do you think it also has to do with their different interpretations of what the different smell means? So like some humans, when they see someone who's sick, will right away go to them, how can I help? Whereas some humans, when they see someone that they care about sick, they push back. It makes them upset, nervous, anxious, and so I tend to think that cats have a lot of the same kinds of reactions that we do at different times. So if I sneeze, Sammy cat comes running to see if I'm okay. It's like, it's the funniest thing. It's like, it's adorable and I love it, but she comes up and she wants to sniff me and make sure that all my pieces are there. Whereas if I sneeze midnight, she runs. She's afraid.
She's afraid. Yeah. So right, just like us, they have their own.
She's like, you've got the plague.
And it's so true. Cats really react to many human sounds and emotions similar to different people might. So yeah, scent has a lot to do with it. In fact, I just finished working with a cat behavior client who has cancer. She's going to be okay, but she had to go through a round of chemotherapy, and the cat did not recognize her because she smelled so different from the chemotherapy and the chemicals that were in her body. So basically her cat was thinking, well, you look like my human, you're in the house,
that's
but
someone else.
You don't smell like my human. You must be an imposter, and I'm going to go hide. So that happened. But then, to your point about the sneezing, recently there was a day I was really, really upset and I was crying. And my cat came running, meowing, and jumped up on my lap like he wanted to comfort me. The other cat, however, was nowhere to be found. So, some
he was like, get over it.
Exactly. Tough love from the other cat. So
that's really interesting because the cancer, one of the things I know about is that people who have cancer, there's an ammonia smell, and that's a manifestation of the cancer. You smell it in hospital wards, but in dogs, actually, there are dogs that can be trained to detect cancer in people, and that's how they do it, because there's that faint smell of ammonia, because the body chemistry changes. Even without the chemo, it's the cancer itself changes the body chemistry subtly. And it's interesting because they don't, at least mine don't, have the same reaction if I put on like perfume or cologne or something, and that's a different smell. So I think it's more related to your body chemistry changing those are the smells that they're reacting to, not necessarily that you're wearing some scent or stench or whatever,
No,
or
that's
you
correct.
farted or something.
You're
It's
very-
more like the chemistry and the pheromones that you're emitting.
Yes, you're correct. It's more your hormones, adrenaline, that type of stuff that are your like natural body smells that they really key in on. But it is so remarkable that they're so perceptive. They really pick up on so many things that we can't pick up on. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to smell somebody who had chemotherapy, but the cats really know it. So it is really, really interesting. And to Deborah's point, they all react differently. They all perceive differently, different levels of threat, different levels of non-recognition, different levels of territory. Some cats are okay with sharing their territory. Some cats are like,
Yeah, like Charlotte.
the cat tree is off limits, and some cats don't want to share any of their house with another cat.
Yeah, some are very, Emily is more territorial than Charlotte. You know what's interesting when we talk about this territory and this recognition and all that, is also stress reactions in the cat. Because when I first got Emily and Charlotte, not at the same time. Emily was 2 when I got Charlotte, and at first her first reaction, and Charlotte was early. Like there was a situation where I needed to take her early. She was only 6 weeks old, so she was not ready to be weaned, but there was no choice. So I got her. She was the size of a tarantula. She could literally sit in my lap. And you saw how big she is now, but it was very cute. So I named her Charlotte because I named her after the French pastry, because she's all puffy and creamy on the bottom with some fruit on the top. So that's where the name comes from. But in any case, when she first came out of the box, Emily had never, in the 2 years that I had her, she had never once hissed. She had never once. She was the sweetest cat ever. But when she saw Charlotte, it was like this error mode activated in her, where I had to call. I didn't know Dr. Rachel either at the time. I had to call the vet because I didn't know what was going on, because it was like this growl hiss, growl hiss, growl hiss, but like perpetually, and it would never stop. I mean, it was like I'd never seen her hissing, and now she's doing this. It was like an error, like a computer that went into some mode, and I'd never seen her do that before. And then I did a gradual introduction. Instead of making the mistake, I did a introduction. And eventually one day I come back from work, and I go up to my bedroom, and I see Charlotte nursing on Emily.
Aww.
I have a video to prove it. Now, Emily is spayed. Emily is definitely not the mother. And there they are. It was so cute. It was really like, no milk's coming out of that. And so they've gotten along pretty much ever since. But then there was one time I came back from work, from a visit to see my mom in Paris, France. So I was away for about 4 days. And there was a piece of, poo in the perfect geometric center of my bed. I mean, they'd never done that. They've never done it since. They'd never done it before. They're very good with the litter box. But it was right. I believe there was a message being sent. And I think it was, and at the time I thought it was, you've been gone for too long. I have since come to realize, and I can't say too much about it, although I mentioned it off the air when we chatted first, that most likely the message was, do not leave me with that person, or do not leave us with that person. Because as much as they wish to deny it, I am 99.9% sure that they were unkind to my cats and did stuff to my cats. The psychology is certain about it. They deny it, which is why there's the 0.1% doubt, because I'm always leaving the door open to being wrong. But the psychology, the science all says, yeah, buddy, you're guilty. However, the reason I bring it up is because it's since that time that they've only tolerated each other. After nursing and being very nice to each other, then it became more of a toleration. And Emily hissing again at Charlotte, never, thank God, never aggressive, never hurting each other, but hissing at her, like, So it's ever since that trip. And it's like, right, so something destabilized. So it's that stress and that reaction has made them their relationship. Now that that's kind of solved and out of the house, they're getting along. But I mean, they're decompressed as much as I am. They're also decompressing. They look like they're starting to get along a lot better. So there's also that, I think, to keep in mind is the stress, the energy. Cats, I think, read energy very, very well. You know, when there's a negative presence, a negative energy in a space, you know, a person or whatever, the cats are good at reading that.
They are very excellent judges of character. Yes.
And the cats have, depending on their personalities, I think they have different ways of expressing what they're feeling. So you reminded me when I first got Sammy Cat, she has short little legs. She's not a dwarf totally, but she's like sort of a munchkin. I mean, she's not like a totally small, but they're like, I think like half size legs.
And anyway, she's not going to grace us with her presence now on the screen.
Well, she's not really allowed in this room.
Okay.
Midnight is, I don't know if you can see Midnight.
I can see.
That's her back. She's on the couch. This is Midnight's room. And Midnight I cannot pick up. And Sammy Cat, if she does strut in here sometime, which she will, to say, well, this is really my room first. It's not usually... Yeah, but Sammy Cat, I can do anything to her. I can pick her up. I can turn her upside down. I put drops in her ears and whatever. But when I brought her home, she was teeny tiny. She was I don't know how old she was. You know, she looked like she was 4 weeks because of the short legs, but maybe she was 8 weeks because she was weaned. And I brought her in the house, and I had Zilly, who was then I think he was 12 years old at the time, and he had been living with a golden retriever who absolutely showed him his place. And so Zilly had been really hiding for a while. And this was before Jackson Galaxy and learning about how to catify a house and all that. So Zilly was like, he was still hiding that. It was habitual for him. I brought Sammy Cat in, and all of a sudden Zilly comes out. Who is this person? And he didn't particularly like the fact that Sammy Cat he would hiss at her, but she's a fearless little kitten, and she would follow him around. He would be sleeping on my son's bed. Sammy Cat would jump up and lay down next to him, like right against him. And he would look at her, hiss, get up and move. She would follow him, and she would plunk herself back down next to him. And the same thing. And he kept getting up and moving and moving. And finally it was like, if he could roll his eyes, I think he would have. And it went from, whatever. Okay. But then they became really good friends. And because Zilly wasn't an aggressive cat, and Sammy Cat was just very persistent. And in fact, Zilly taught Sammy all kinds of things. He taught her how to hiss, for one thing. He would hiss at her. And I remember the day that Sammy was watching him, and he hissed. And she looked at him and she was like, and then she sat up a little straighter. And then she sat up a little straighter. And it was like, oh, I could do that too. And I was like, Sammy, that's rude. We don't hiss. He can hiss. I can hiss. There was one day they were sitting across from each other in the kitchen. He was licking one paw, and Sammy Cat was just watching. And she picked up a paw very tentatively and started licking it. And he's not paying any attention to her. He finishes cleaning his paw, puts it down, picks up the other paw, and she's in the middle of a lick, and she stops. She puts her paw down and she picks up the other one. She just learned everything from him. And in like 4 years later, he died. He died when he was 16, and he had kidney failure. But when he was sort of like, I call it his hospice period, she would sit really close to him. She'd be in this little, almost ground level windowsill, and he'd be in a little, his little cozy blanket thing. And she'd be looking out the window, but her tail would be draped over him. And I have pictures of that. And just like, yeah, I'm here. And they were really close, but it was only because she was so persistent. She was just like, I'm not taking no for, I'm a little kitten. I need a big guy. I need someone around, a cat parent, and you're it. So
I mean, that works with people too. I had a neighbor when I lived in Beverly Hills, California. I had a neighbor who was as unfriendly as it gets, but I was at the time very persistent. I don't know if I would still do that today. Today I'd be like, I don't have time for this. But like, I was very persistent, and I very gradually, every single day when I'd walk to my car or whatever, I would just, look at her or look at her and smile or look at her and say good morning or hello or, very, very, very gradually. Well, eventually, after quite a long time, but eventually she smiled back and said hello. And at that point, the floodgates were opened, and each time I'd walk by, we'd have a small little conversation. And she was really nice. But at
Kind of
first, she
like
was very
socializing.
unfriendly.
Yeah,
So I socialized her.
and Deborah, there's a name for that phenomenon. It's actually called the helper cat.
Helper cat.
Helper cat.
Good to know. Mhm.
It's very interesting because not every cat is a helper cat, but oftentimes at shelters, I work with a lot of shelters and I'll help them identify the helper cats, because for people who do adopt, maybe a semi-feral cat, a very shy cat, a withdrawn cat, a helper cat can make the whole world of difference, as you saw. So it's really an interesting phenomenon. And some cats, if you do have a helper cat, they absolutely will help teach the other cat, and the other cat will realize that this is a safe cat to learn things from.
So which cat was the helper cat? Because that's why I thought that when I brought Midnight in the house, that Sammy Cat would be okay, because look how she
was a helper cat to the
helper cat for Zilly. But it was like, no, this cat is almost my age. She's a she. So it was all this like, I don't want her here. And I kept talking to her. Remember when, I tried to get her to remember when she came in the family, and and she and Zilly didn't want anything to do with her, and how good friends they got to be. And she was just like, no.
Well, and that can happen. Not every helper cat is going to respond or feel a connection with another cat. It's just like, I'm married. I like men. If something, God forbid, happened to my husband and someone plopped some other guy in and said, okay, here's your new helper guy, it may not be that into it. So, every
interesting analogy.
Relationship.
Yeah. And then there's people that as soon as they get a divorce, they're like, next, it's like they're not waiting any time at all before they're diving in. So
they may not have waited.
Yeah, but they may not have waited. Yeah.
But it's lovely. Your helper cat story that you did have is really a lovely story. And I had that happen once myself, where I brought in a cat who had been hit, had been abused, and he followed my resident cat around everywhere. And he learned, the house, like I used to call it a cat parade, because whenever the resident cat started walking somewhere, the newcomer was trailing along behind.
Oh, that's cool.
He acted like a helper cat to him and helped him get.
So before we wind up the show, Deborah, I want to ask you if when someone reads Whiskers in the Wild, what's one thing that we can learn from reading the book? Like what's one big thing that's from reading the book that our listeners might get out of it?
So I hope there's a bunch of things that they'll get out of it.
But an example.
Kind of a way to, I hope they get a sense of how the cat's mind works to the best that we know how, and how to respect a cat as their own personage, so to speak. Cats choose their friends just like we choose our friends, and they have to go slow in order to become, a comrade of the cat, how to approach a cat, in some cases, how to trap a cat. I've also put in the back, I put a list of, the last chapter is fun facts about cats, like things that you might not have known. Like cats can run 30 to 40 miles an hour. That's why you can't catch them. Don't chase that. But little bits like that. But I think the thing I would hope that they would learn the most is to treat a cat, as crazy as it sounds, treat a cat like almost like a person. Respect them, respect their space, respect their interest in starting a relationship. So when we become friends with someone, we don't just say, okay, I want to be friends with Justin. Come on, Justin, let's go. Well, Justin has something to say about that, right? The cat's the same way. They need to have something to say about it too. They came to this relationship on their own. Unlike dogs who are actually bred for the relationship, the human canine relationship, cats were not. Cats have sort of entered into it of their own free will. when they want to. And I think basically to respect the cat. But there's a lot of stuff in there about how to take care of them, how to trap them. Not every cat belongs on your sofa. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a bunch of things like what your father's doing that are really, really helpful and necessary for them. And so to kind of be able to assess, what does this cat need? And, does this cat even belong inside? And if they do, how to do it. But I think the respect for the whole species of cats, and to treat them like little people in a way.
So in a way, it sounds like you're giving us a cat's eye view of the world and the relationship with people. So even though it's not written from the perspective of a cat, like a fiction work would be, it is a glimpse into the sort of inner workings of a cat's life and mind and how they work. So I think that's really good. I mean, that sounds like would be, aside from all the little tips and trivia that's in there, it sounds like just people, maybe learning how to empathize with a cat. Because it's a different species. How can you have empathy with it unless it's suffering or something like that? But suffering aside, I think your book might be able to reveal how, any human can actually have real, genuine empathy for a cat and see the world from the cat's point of view. And
to understand what their needs are, because their needs are different, than your dogs or your friends. And sometimes they're different for each cat. So
yeah, well, I know that. They're different from Emily and Charlie. Emily loves being brushed. Once you start brushing her, you can't stop. She starts purring. Brushing is a reward. And she's a short hair. My long hair, Charlotte, does not like brushing. So brushing for her, she'll tolerate it a few strokes, and then that's it. She hisses at the brush, which is really weird. She doesn't hiss at you, but she hisses at the brush. And then that's it. She doesn't want it anymore. And she needs like a reward for allowing the brushing of the long hair cat, which is, I wish they were like the opposite. But yeah, so they have very, very different personalities when it comes to that. And then once you do brush her and you pull the fur off, another phenomenon of Charlotte is she will see her like the ball of her own fur and she'll hiss at it. She'll hiss at her own fur like it's some other animal.
That's so funny. Sammy
don't
cat,
understand.
when she sees her hair, she wants to sniff it and like take it back. It's almost like she wants
Yeah. So Emily will do that, and Emily doesn't really have hairballs. And I asked the vet, he said, her enzymes fully digest the fur when she licks it, and some cats have that. And we're like, wow, that's cool. So Emily does that, but then Charlotte will like hiss at her own fur like it's a creature, like it's another thing. It's very like, what non-recognition would there be? It's her own fur. I don't get it, but I think the vet doesn't know. I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that one.
Maybe she does recognize it. Maybe she thinks you stole it.
No, but it's sitting there. Maybe she's offended that it's all, but she's hissing at the fur. She's not hissing at me like, maybe you stole
she's angry
this.
That it deserted her.
maybe like, I thought you were like on my back, who knows? I mean, don't think we'll ever really know the answer.
No.
So I think that sounds wonderful. What do you think, Dr. Rachel, about this idea and this book?
I mean, I love the whole concept, and I was so pleased to be able to work with Deborah, for the little bit that I contributed. And I think
you wrote the foreword, right?
I did. And I think I helped also with like bringing a cat outdoors into the inside and how you might want to help acclimate that cat. I think I might have helped you with that too. But anyway, I digress. I love Deborah's concept of, letting the cat have control, letting the cat lead the pace. In these matters, it's always best to go at the cat's pace. It's really, and as Deborah said, you want to honor that's cat's wishes, that the cat's personality, how fast or slow they want to go. The worst thing you can do to a cat is to take away her sense of control, because control is very, very important to a cat. So even when we're doing something for our benefit, we want to set things up so the cat feels like she has a choice. And for her to think that it was all her idea. This works great on my husband too, by the way.
Yeah, it works well with a boss or a manager as well.
Yes,
there's a term for that. It's called mushroom management.
Ooh, I love that.
You know, we
Yes,
do this. We
Deborah's
do this
point
in
of,
coaching.
of honoring and recognizing and respecting cats is really a lovely.
And you know, there's a song in my head ever since you talked about control and cats and all that, and you know, the late great artist Prince. You know, some people liked him. I really enjoyed his music, um, and my old college buddy had him on her sitcom. You know, she's a well-known actress in Hollywood, so she had him on a sitcom and didn't invite me to at least, you know, don't I wasn't expecting her to hire me on the show. He was there for 2 days. At least let me sit in the audience or something. You knew I liked Prince. You knew me in university. You could have said, "Hey, Justin, come and see Prince." Now he's gone, and that opportunity will never happen again. But in any case, he has a song which isn't one of his big hits, but it's actually quite a catchy, interesting song if you don't mind the risque, potentially offensive lyrics. And it's called Control, or P Control, and I think you know what the P stands for.
Figure it out.
You know, he was not talking about cats, although you could take it for cats if you reinterpreted all the song and all the lyrics and thought about it as being about a cat, about cats. Well, then actually the song works for that too. And it's quite funny when you think about it. Again, not what Prince was talking about, you know, but, you know, like there's a lyric in there about she's the mayor of your brain. Anyway, well, yeah, I mean, honestly, my cat, she is the mayor of my brain. I mean, when she comes in and meows and wants something, yes, ma'am. I mean, it's like there's no ignoring her. She is good at securing attention. Anyway, that's another little digression, but I think it's cute. It's cool. If anybody listens to the song and you're offended, I gave you the disclaimer that the song is not about cats and it is potentially offensive. However, you can take the song as being about cats, and then it's actually quite cute. And I personally don't take offense to dirty lyrics, but it is dirty. So it's a dirty song. So there you go. But that's, I thought of that. I'd play a clip if I could, but the problem is, you know, you have a 6-second rule for, you know, the copywritten works. I could do it, but then it's the fact that it's an offensive, it's a, you know, swear word kind of. And I don't want to take that risk either. So I'll leave people with the opportunity to explore the Prince musical catalog on their own, and that's all. That's all about that. But you brought that to mind, Deborah. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm really excited to read the book because I didn't mention this earlier on the air, but I haven't read it yet because I've had some stuff happening and I ran out of time to do it. But I skimmed it and I can't wait to read it, especially because it will have all of those insights into the empathy of a cat. And there's all the other tips and the contribution from Dr. Rachel and all of that. So is there anything you would care to say or tell us and leave us with as a sort of final word from the author?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Dr. Rachel, for writing the foreword and for being my friend. And I hope to maybe see you when I get to Boston next time. And I guess just, you know, just respect your cat. Just, you know, treat your cat the way you'd want someone to treat you. Obviously, if they're headed for something dangerous, you have to get them out, you know, like a child. You can't let them just do whatever they want, but within safety limits, you know, and reasonableness, let them be themselves, and they will appreciate you. And the love that you will get from your cat is just beyond compare. It's just such an amazing bond that they form with us.
Oh yeah, you can get that unconditional love. Absolutely. And Dr. Rachel, is there anything you would care to say or ask before we end the show?
Again, another wonderful catch up. Thank you, Deborah, for being our special guest. I'm glad that we connected and we could get you onto the show. Thank you for writing the book. You know, every time someone reads your book, more cats are going to be helped. More cats may be rescued. More cats may be saved. But big picture, more cats will be understood. And that's just so important.
Mm.
So thank you.
Yes, that's amazing. And the cover is by coincidence a lot like My Emily and Charlotte. So if you're watching this, there you can see the cover. If you're not watching this and you're just listening, that's fine too. Whiskers in the Wild, available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble in the USA. Get a copy of the book because it's not just cute, it's also informative and helpful, and I think you'll enjoy seeing what happens with a cat. It's sort of the cat's point of view. And I just thought of something. You know how we always say catch up? You always say cat. This could be a cat chat. And what's, I don't know, a little bit cool about that is cat chat. Well, CHAT is the word for cat in French,
Yeah.
chat.
Mm.
So cat, chat, cat, chat. I mean, that works in many languages. Anyway, that's another little funny thing. So this is Cat Lady Justin, and you have been listening to or watching The Kitty Boss, where we pick, pamper, and protect your practically perfect pussycat for a lifetime of unconditional love. Thank you. We have had Deborah Blaine here with Whiskers in the Wild, a book she authored. Please get a copy and support her, but also benefit from the insights that are in the book. Dr. Rachel has written the foreword. So thank you, Dr. Rachel, for being on the show. And with one final PS,
One
Deborah
final
Blaine.
PS is that a portion of the royalties do go to support shelters and rescue groups.
There you go. So a portion of the proceeds go to support charities that really need it, because you guys know as well as I do, there are way too many cats that don't have a home, that need a home. And that's why my dream is for 1 million more cats to find a loving home, because there's just too many of them. And Deborah is just another piece, very, very helpful and significant piece of that puzzle. Thank you very much, and we'll see you real soon.